I hope you guys are picking that stream up behind me. Nice little ambiance going on here. This is welcome to episode 7 here, Something in the Wild. I'm back out here again, out in the woods, by this little stream near the house. Flowing real good right now. It was really high a couple days ago. We got a lot of rain, but starting to cool down now. Nice clear flow, and it's really nice right now. Really relaxing. I'm glad to be out here. It's snowing a little bit. Nothing too crazy. It was snowing a decent amount whenever I was driving in here, but it slowed down a little bit. But yeah, I'm looking forward to bringing you some content here. I had to skip out on Sammy and I's date night. Yeah, hopefully she forgives me. Sorry, Sammy, but I love you. We're going to go out on Wednesday, so I didn't completely cancel, just rescheduled. We're going to have a nice little meal tonight, some some biscuits and elk gravy. She found a recipe online she's going to cook up, so I'm excited to try that out. Looking forward to it a lot. And while I'm on the subject, I think that I just want to thank Sammy so much. She is such a huge help with all this stuff. So I know you're listening. I love you. Okay. All right. So on to our first topic of episode 7. So I was looking in the news, much like I usually do whenever I don't have too much going on at work, specifically outdoor news, that sort of stuff, and just trying to stay up on current events, things like that. And the one thing that I ran into while I was looking, I saw a new law passed in England. And I know we talk a lot about America here, so I briefly entertain me here and just listen this out. So England has just passed this law prohibiting backcountry camping in a national park out there in England. So Dartmoor National Park just closed the door on dispersed camping for all those folks out there in England, and that sucks. That was the only national park that allowed it currently, and they just stopped. So I don't know how familiar all you guys are with England's laws and stuff regarding outdoor activity, things like that. But on their national parks, well, all of their national parks are like they're part private, part public. So it's not all owned by the government. Part of it's owned by private citizens, part of it's owned by the government, and those private citizens forego their right and allow the public to use their land, but no longer are you able to disperse camp there. And that's kind of a shocker, I know, for a lot of Americans, because you just think national park, oh, you can camp on national park land, or you can camp on national forest land, or wilderness land, stuff like that. But yeah, they just closed the door. So, what does that mean for them? I mean, I think America is very lucky in the fact that we designated wilderness right. We saved ourselves by the skin of our teeth. We designated wilderness just in time before it was all developed. And I am, very, very grateful for the people that had the foresight to think, wow, we need to designate this so that we can protect it, and something like that does not happen, because it's still happening in this day. In the world now, there are places, there are rights that are getting taken away from outdoorsmen and women to use those public lands. So making sure you're staying diligent about that. And it kind of got me thinking to what is something that's going on in America that might be relatable to that specific situation. And I kept on stumbling into navigable waterways. And just a little background, navigable waterways are bodies of water, much like a stream like this, or a river, or a lake, or whatever, that has historically been used as like a travel corridor for humans, like trade routes and stuff like that. And the laws surrounding navigable waterways are such that anyone can travel up and down them. no matter if it's private land on both sides of the river, what have you, anyone can travel up and down the river as long as you are within the high water mark. So if you're in these gravel shoals within the banks, you are allowed to travel up and down. And you might think, oh, well, that seems pretty self-explanatory. How does that relate to that England situation at all? Well, not every waterway is navigable. So not every stream, not every river you're not allowed to travel up and down on every single river. Granted, there are a lot that you can, but there are some that you aren't allowed to. And the one that immediately comes to mind is up in Erie. So up in Erie, there are a bunch of tributaries into the Great Lakes, and some of them navigable, some of them aren't. And it gets very, very controversial, because I can guarantee you that all of those streams up there were at one point used as travel routes. There's just no denying it. I mean, those, people have been in that area of the world for thousands and thousands of years. You're telling me that a couple of these streams have not been used as travel routes? It's just ridiculous. And the reason that that's such a big deal to me, the federal or the state government uses tag sales for steelhead fishing. They use that money to stock steelhead in those streams, even if you're not allowed to access it. So what, why are we paying money to stock streams that we can't access? And I know it's all for the general health of the steelhead, and you want to have a healthy population in the lakes, and that comes from a healthy population in all tributaries. But I think if we're paying money to manage that water for steelhead habitat, I think the least that we could do is have access to it, right? And yeah, this gets very controversial, for landowner rights and stuff like that. And it's a whole can of worms that you'd have to open up to make that accessible. But it involves rolling from a judge to tell you that, oh yeah, this was navigable at one point, therefore you do have access to it, and all that sort of stuff. So it's just not something that is very easily obtained for us as Pennsylvania residents. So just something to think about. I have a hard time believing that they're doing the right thing here, where you aren't allowed access to those streams that they are stocking steelhead in. I just think that that's wrong. And there should be an initiative in place to make that accessible to the general public. So that's kind of my opinion on the whole situation and the access situation there. It just, it'll open up so many more opportunities for anglers in Pennsylvania specifically. So yeah, who knows? Maybe I'll take a look into that at some point in the future. See if I can partner with some organization or whatever to help make that happen, because I think that would be a really, really good initiative. I think that you can get the support of a lot of people on that. And it'd be beneficial for everyone. Everyone would have access to those streams and be able to, fish on those rivers. So yeah, maybe some point in the future, we'll see. Now, my next kind of topic of discussion, my next point that I wanted to bring up was the point of solar energy. So I know it's a big push right now in Pennsylvania for new solar energy, and I'm sure across the country, solar energy is a very big topic of discussion right now. And the question that I had for you guys was, do you think that solar energy, and specifically solar energy farms, are the way to go? And I'm going to define solar energy farms here. So solar energy farms are giant tracts of land with, cut grass, fenced off, with hundreds, if not thousands, of solar panels. Now, this is something the outdoor community might argue and bicker over, but I'm just going to present the facts and you guys can fall on whatever side of the argument you want. So solar farms, one of the arguments against solar farms is that, it's taking up these huge tracts of land. You're basically cutting it off for all native wildlife, native species of wildlife, harvesting that solar energy instead of allowing native vegetation to grow, native grasses, native trees, stuff like that. You got to cut down a whole bunch of trees to plant all these, or install all these solar panels here. And yeah, that's kind of the argument. I mean, you're cutting down a bunch of life to harvest this energy. I think there are better ways to handle it. But yeah, that's kind of the negative impact, and obviously the positive impact would be the renewable energy side of things. So there's no getting around the fact that solar energy is probably the future. You just produce so much electricity from the sun, and like I said, you can't get around it. There's the ever-increasing population of America is going to require more and more electricity, and the less electricity we pull from non-renewable resources, the better. Especially if we're harvesting something as universal as the sun. I mean, everyone has access to the sun. So using that energy for a good purpose is definitely a plus. But yeah, taking up that area is a negative that a lot of people are seeing right now. So just being cognizant of it, and I think a good solution for that whole situation would probably be to have more of a conceited effort to install these solar panels, install this stuff on houses, on the roofs of houses. And you got to figure out a way to compensate the homeowners and stuff like that, because it is their property you're using. But if you can figure out a way to do that, I mean, there's so much real estate on roofs. Think about how many friggin' houses there are. If you put solar panels on people's roofs, and a lot of people are doing that right now. But if you figure out a way where you can incentivize homeowners to take advantage of that, and there are incentives right now, but if you can incentivize homeowners to take advantage of that, I think that's a huge next step in the energy crisis that we're facing right now. In certain parts of the country, I mean, people are, there's rolling blackouts where, the government announces, hey, we're going to shut off your electricity from this point to this point. And there's nothing you can do about it. You gotta have a way to keep your lights on, stuff like that. And if you don't, then you're gonna go without electricity for a while. So it's just an interesting talking point. Might have you guys thinking a little bit about it. I don't know. I mean, there's no right answer, I don't think. But I think just finding a way to incorporate that all together and take into consideration different aspects, different things. But I will say, I don't think the answer is cutting down forests to install solar panels. I just don't think that's it. But there's other ways around it, and solar energy obviously is a great tool. So just keeping that in mind, Next, and kind of my biggest talking point that I wanted to discuss here today. So this was something new that just came up for me. I saw on MeatEater's website they did an article about this. So if you want to check out more of the details, the meateater.com, you can read up all about this. But Nebraska right now is considering a bill for state legislature currently to take away funding from state wildlife agencies. There's a huge push right now with a couple of the senators there in Nebraska, and this might not seem super relevant, but it happens. I mean, it happens from time to time, state to state. It happened in PA a couple years ago. I think that if we're bringing attention to it now, hopefully we can stop it and support other outdoorsmen and make sure that the wildlife. The wildlife and wild places have a voice. Not just Nebraskans, but the country as a whole. I think it's important to learn about. So here's actually it's very, very controversial how these senators are dealing with this, because there is an initiative right now. A lot of Nebraskan folks are emailing into the senators' offices and expressing their concerns, saying that we don't want you guys taking away money from our wildlife agencies for wildlife conservation, stuff like that. And this was actually a quote from one of the backing senators. His name's Steve Erdman. And this was in response to an out-of-state hunter who was emailing him about this specific issue. So in quotes, he said, "I received 50 or more of these emails. Each one is exactly the same and very poorly written. Look at the first line. As a concerned sportsman and constituent," end quote. "Are you confused about where you live? How can you be a constituent of Nebraska if you live out of state? Nice try," Erdman says. So this senator responded to an out-of-state hunter who has been coming to Nebraska for years and years and years with his family. His dad has gone there for years and years and years. His grandfather, generations worth of hunters here in Nebraska. And this is how he responds to him. I just find it so shocking, the nerve of some representatives. There's no compassion, whatever. They're trying to get their residents of the country, maybe not of Nebraska, and I understand where he's coming from. He's not technically a constituent, but it still affects him. And, if he's going to voice his concern in a respectful way, how could you not listen to that and pay attention? People are coming to you. They're expressing concerns. Why are you so condescending? Why are you trying to push them away? It's kind of very gross and in very ill taste, in my opinion, and kind of leaves a sour taste in your mouth. I mean, like, it's not his money. It's not his money that he's spending here. I mean, this is the state's money. This is the federal, or this is the Wildlife Conservation Fund, and that fund comes from the Pittman-Robertson Act. Pittman-Robertson Act. And those of you guys that are unfamiliar with the Pittman-Robertson Act, it's an act that was instilled by sportsmen back in the early 20th century that puts a tax on all outdoor apparel, all outdoor equipment. So if you buy a gun, there's a tax taken off that goes directly into this fund. If you buy a hunting jacket, there's a tax taken off of that goes directly into this fund. And where this fund goes, it directly funds wildlife agencies across the country. And it makes up a huge percentage of their budget. Millions and millions and millions of dollars every single year. Billions, in fact, go into this fund. And that is what is driving wildlife conservation. And for someone to threaten to take that away is absolutely ridiculous. It has been such success over the years, and it has created so many opportunities for outdoorsmen and sportsmen and wildlife, all wrapped into one package. And it's probably the only example in history where a group, a subset of individuals went and said, please tax us, so that we can help. Please tax us so that we can provide funding for these wild animals, for these wild places. Please tax us so that we can spend money to help save our wildlife, to help enhance their habitat, to help them thrive and survive in an ever-changing world. Why does he think that, now it's time to change it? I mean, I understand that things change with time, but this has been such a steady, consistent funding act for wildlife. How could you change that, right? How could you change that? It's mind-blowing to me. And I hope that he comes around to it. I hope that enough people are reaching out, emailing to him. And I will be doing the same, and hopefully there can be consensus to forgo this bill, to just get it out of voting. It's not something that is welcome, in my opinion. It's not something that should be welcome in any outdoorsman's opinion, because taking that money away, it really hurts. Really hurts what we're trying to do here. It really hurts the initiative that we're trying to take to protect these wild animals. So I really appreciate you guys listening. I really appreciate you guys following along. And I am looking forward to next week. Comment something if you want me to talk about something specific. I would love to cover anything outdoor related, and it doesn't even have to be outdoor related. If you just want my opinion on something, please feel free to write that in the comments. But other than that, hope you guys have a good rest of the day. I appreciate it, and make sure to keep it wild. Thanks, guys.